it's not letting me promote it a panelist, maybe you have to do it.
Just confirm that they can hear you when you start.
Okay. What am I looking for, Pam?
You got her over, we got her over, Jean's in now, she's all set.
Okay. All right, a little bit delayed. If you are on Zoom, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Zoom participants, can you hear me? Nothing. Can anybody hear me on Zoom? If so, can you give me a thumbs up?
One more time.
Thumbs up from the Zoom audience? Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. No, that's okay. We got it going. That's all that matters. Okay, a little bit of a delayed start, but it is 7:09 on Wednesday, September 22nd. This is the Swampscott School Committee. I am calling us to order. We are here at the Swampscott High School, and we have the Swampscott School Committee is in person, along with the superintendent, and a number of our members are via Zoom. This is also available on YouTube and I believe Facebook? Just YouTube tonight. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dulett. For all who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I am going to start in with the committee announcements, but I want to make sure we have the right technology, Mr. Dulett, for me to call on members of Zoom. Does that?
We start in the room first?
We can start in the room first. Mr. Pastor, why don't we start with you?
Oh, thank you. Really, just to start, I'd like to thank town meeting for their overwhelming vote to send the school building project to the voters. I think that was a great decision. I know that I'm looking forward to the next several weeks, and we're getting close to the finish line, and I appreciate everybody's thoughts around that. I just want to bring up just a couple things that have happened in the local area the last week or so. As I'm sure most of you know, there was an incident, or I should say an alleged incident, at the Roxbury Prep versus Georgetown football game a few days ago. And what is alleged to happen, and there's no video, there's no audio, what we have is allegations. And even those allegations are very, I think, uncomfortable for many, many people. And I call on everyone to have cooler heads. I hope both schools and the folks that are doing the investigation come to a conclusion and find the truth. And that's really what I hope. I think that's what everybody wants. And it was just very unnerving reading some of the comments that were to have been said, some of the comments after the fact. And I hope that a conclusion comes of that is satisfactory to all parties. Additionally, there was another incident of uncomfort at the Beverly School Committee meeting about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where two members of the public verbally accosted the only African-American member of that board. And Dr. McKenzie from the Beverly School Committee is an accomplished PhD. She's an accomplished educator. And I went back and listened to some of the video. It was appalling. It really was. And, I know we've had people who come before this board, and virtually everybody there may be disagreements, but everyone's polite. Everyone speaks with deference to their colleagues, to us here, and I really do appreciate that from my chair. We can disagree, and there are some things we disagree upon with the public, and I just think that the discourse that we have been able to have with members of the public who have come before this meeting has been, A, it's been educational for me, and B, I really appreciate that it's been done with the tone and tenor, that I think everybody expects from our community. And so I thank the community for that, and I wish Dr. McKenzie well as she continues with her duties at the Beverly School Committee. Thank you.
Ms. Wright?
I just wanted to say thank you to our staff, specifically Mrs. Eisenberg, the art teacher, for organizing Pinwheels for Peace that was at Linscott Park on, my God, was it just last night? It feels like this week's been so long. Just last night. It was great. It's great to see it grow every year, and so many parents and kids were out there putting their pinwheels in the ground, and it's just such a nice event, important. So thanks. There's lots of staff out there too. It was nice to see.
Ms. Wright? Ms. Marshall?
Oh, thanks. I wanted to echo how great the Pinwheels for Peace was. I drove by it today, and it looked amazing. And then I just wanted to say welcome to our new student reps, and I can't wait to hear from them. And that's all tonight.
Ms. Argentis?
Thank you. I also did the drive-by last night on that, so I'm glad to hear it went very well. And just to echo what Glenn said about those incidences, I share your concern, and I found it personally quite upsetting to read about these. So I also appreciate, as you do, Glenn, the decorum that's been exhibited at the meetings we've had. It's been contentious topics occasionally, so I also appreciate that decorum that the town has shown to us.
All right, and now, Mr. Gillette, I'd love to go to our two new additions on Zoom.
Who do you want to go to first?
I will, why don't I go to Madison as D comes before J.
You guys just make sure you mute your mics.
Madison, I just want to say welcome.
And I think I can speak for both Maggie and myself when we say how honored and excited we are to be here. We're so looking forward to the upcoming school committee meetings and working with you all. Just an update for SHS in general. The atmosphere in person is so much better than on Zoom. We're so happy to be, making eye contact with our teachers, going to extra help, and being able to do all the things that would entail. Just the simplest of things, like bumping into your friends in the hallway, is so much different than squares on Zoom. So things like football games and the school play that's up and running is just reasons why we're all so happy to be in person in school.
All right, I apologize. We're having a little bit of feedback here. We could. There was a little bit of feedback. So why don't we go to Ms. Maggie Jensen? Hold on one second.
Okay, she can go. Okay, she can go. Okay, she can go.
Okay. Is there an echo? Because I'm kind of hearing it.
Hey, Ms. Jensen, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can. I apologize, your microphone was muted, so just if you could start from the beginning, no one heard you, so you get a chance to kind of start over from the top. We're just having some tech difficulties here, but we want to hear everything you said. This is Mr. Gillette, I'm running the tech, so you can go ahead and start.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Go ahead and try. Go ahead and try.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead and try.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead and try.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a all right, if you're willing to give it one more try here. Can you hear us, Ms. Jensen? No?
I just want to apologize to you, Madison and Maggie. Thank you for bearing with us. If you can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Apologies. We will get this sorted out, and Mr. Dulett is working on it. When we do get the thumbs up, I'd like to come back to you. I really appreciate that we have both of you here this evening, and don't want to leave you out. But for the moment, we are going to move forward into the superintendent's report. This is a challenging. This is a challenging night.
I'll get the door. I'll get the door.
Oh, here, sit down. What are you doing?
Should laugh.
Oh, well, for anybody who can hear, I'm going to turn this over to our superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
And I thank everybody for being adaptable.
Thumbs up if you can hear me on Zoom. Great. Okay, thank you so much. I have brought up my superintendent's report. The first two items are items that the committee come before the committee for review and adoption. One is the student handbook from 2021-2022. There are too many changes to articulate, but it has been up and running, and all I'm asking the committee to do is adopt this. Obviously, it went home to families. It is a number of pages every year at the leadership retreat. We go through it as a leadership team, make changes to it, update it, improve it, and so I'm asking the committee to adopt this. It can be found online. It is about 77 pages. So it is kind of a formality to come before you and ask you to review and adopt. That is the first item.
Okay, so, can I will entertain a motion to approve the 2021-22 student handbook.
So I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussions or questions for the superintendent? So Superintendent, this has been approved by your leadership team.
It has been approved, it's been worked on in our 4-day leadership retreat. We make tweaks to it every year, adjust it every year, no substantial changes, just updates.
Okay,
Thank you.
any questions from anybody?
No, I was psyched to see 7 different languages this year.
Yeah.
It's translated into, that's pretty impressive.
You know, we have become quite adept at translating everything. I actually got a quick lesson one day, and then I was sending a family communication, and my executive assistant was absent, and I actually did it myself.
There you go.
So we all have the ability to do it. Our occupational health nurse is translating her documents so that it doesn't fall to the superintendent's office. It's amazing. It's really great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
All right, all in favor then?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then the athletic handbook, there are 2 changes. I will scroll down and show you those changes and updates. One is on page 5 and one is on page 6. I have to go this way. I think my window is a little wackadoodle. So on page 5, there is an inserted area that says any family seeking to have user fees waived must first apply for free and reduced lunch and submit the hardship waiver form to the school business office located at 207 Forest Ave. User fees will be waived for all students who qualify for free lunch and reduced for those students qualifying for reduced lunch. Forms are available online and in the main office. If you do not qualify for free and reduced lunch, the school business administrator will work with families on an individual basis. Waiver requests should be submitted to the school business manager, Martha Seibert, for consideration. That is the first change.
And so that's a difference because that takes it out of the athletic office?
Yes.
Okay,
And also it is tied to free and reduced lunch. There's a very prescriptive way to do that.
Okay.
We don't want students to be unable to play for financial hardships, but Ms. Seibert does take every individual request under consideration. And then the other change is just, it was inserted that students returning to play after a concussion or COVID diagnosis will be required to complete return to play protocols. So those are a couple of things that were added. Those were the only additions to the athletic handbook from last year. And so again, I'm asking the committee to review and adopt.
I will entertain a motion to approve the athletic handbook for 2021.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Just curious. So after concussions or COVID, how about other
Medical related?
Yeah, like,
We can add that in as well.
I was just
mean,
wondering if that's as important, if there's a protocol for like after a sprained ankle or a, broken leg or whatever. I don't even know if we have necessarily a return to play protocol for those
There was a
things.
paragraph right above that inserted paragraph that said something.
Student athletes who are not allowed to play due to documented injury, illness, or
right.
existing medical conditions
Okay.
must have written clearance
Yeah.
from their
I was
doctor.
just saying the difference was like there's
There's
we
not
have
a
we have
protocol for those medical injuries, correct?
I didn't know we had a protocol for the return after COVID. I just knew we
Right.
just have one for concussions, but.
Yep. So those are the only 2 changes in this document. Again, I would be looking for approval.
Just a quick
Adopted.
question,
Yeah.
on those protocols. So are we voting on those, or are those kind of an evolving?
Those protocols are already established. The concussion protocol is actually, I think,
Right,
under,
the concussion one I'm aware of, yeah.
and the COVID protocols are things that are on our website that were laid out last year in terms of having a negative test and all of those things that have been rolled out from the health office.
But we don't have, so at one point, we had lots of protocols as part of our policy manual, but we don't have protocols anymore. We pulled almost all of them out of there. I think actually all of them are. There's might be a regulation or 2 left in our policy manual, but the protocols are all operational. So
Right,
we don't.
that's
so
where I was
don't-
going with this, we're
Yeah, so-
pointing somewhere else.
So we don't, I think the reason we're seeing the concussion protocol tonight is because it's in concert with the concussion policy, but we don't, the protocols on them, right, for this too, for
Right,
COVID
correct.
protocols, not school committee purview,
Correct.
yeah.
So I'm looking for a vote to adopt. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes, it is approved.
Okay, Mr. Jantis just brought up a very good point. Mrs. Mulcahy was going to come back to the committee and talk further about the testing, and questions were going to be sent. Mrs. Mulcahy was planning to be here on the 14th. As you know, the meeting was canceled. She was unable to attend tonight due to a family matter. And so we, as a district, are rolling out the testing. And so let me give you a little bit of an update. There's been a lot of letters that have gone home. One of the most important things is the first item up here is that we have not been sending letters for close contacts or a student sent home sick or positive case at school. DESE is requiring us to do that, so those letters are going to start kicking in again and going home to families. And I know families get annoyed by the number of letters that go home, but it is a requirement of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, so we need to do that as a district.
Could we do that as a, rather than a daily basis, like on a weekly basis that says, you know, this number of kids went home, this number of
We'll have to
kids-
check the requirements. I think the requirements are such that every time it occurs, we need to send a letter, but let me double check for you.
Because, you know, I think, you know, as somebody who gets those letters, it becomes almost like noise. You don't even pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just that there was another case in the school
Yes,
blanket
yes.
sort of letters.
DESE has drafted the letters. Mrs. Mulcahy has put them in a folder. They're ready to go. At our leadership team meeting today, we talked about the fact that it is a requirement that we send them, but I will circle back with Mrs. Mulcahy and find out if it can be on a weekly basis or it has to be every time there's an occurrence.
Because it seems like in some ways that would be something that people might pay attention to. Like this week we had 10
Mhm.
cases,
Mhm.
last week we had 0 cases. That,
Mhm.
you know, kind of,
But in the event that you can't do that, the subject line should probably say DESE required letter or something like that.
Mm.
Or just so, and
They don't get
maybe,
annoyed at the
and maybe the name of the school it's coming from, like SMS or Clark or whatever, so that people can choose not to open it because they know what it's gonna be.
Okay.
I don't know, I just was thinking of a way to just sort of sort
well,
your
it does
inbox.
come out from the individual schools.
Right, it only goes to you if you have a child in that particular
Yeah.
school.
But to your point, you know, if you know that it's just,
Yeah,
you know,
but sometimes
DESE
you have a school
requirement.
and you have kids.
You have kids in
schools or
multiple,
something.
right.
Right, but it will say,
Right.
it does say which school it's coming
Yeah, I
from.
just think DESE required letter should be on there so that you're not getting, I mean, people are gonna get mad at spam anyway, but
Yeah.
Okay, I noted that, and I'll discuss that with Mrs. Mulcahy. So, we have, as Mrs. Mulcahy has said before, we have partnered with CIC Health. This is a free service that we have been assigned a test coordinator. He has met with all of the principals at each of the schools. He is bringing in about 4 staff members.
wow.
And we are looking to get more assistance. So we have rolled out the test and stay. In fact, I wasn't feeling well one day last week, and I was tested. And in 15 minutes, I had my results. I was negative. I stayed at work. It was great. But in terms of the pool testing, I thought we were coming back to talk to the committee. However, it is scheduled to roll out on the 27th. And if I click on this link, the routine COVID screening, this letter went home to families today. In it, there is a schedule. Now, the only students that will be part of this are the 1,059 students who have so far consented to test. They have filled out the form where they consent to test. Of staff, we have only 102 members. I think this is something that has fallen off the radar of teachers. I know I went in and had to consent to test. So in the letter that went home today, there is a link down here, CIC consent form, if you wanted to sign up for that. We will not be testing. We will send home to quarantine students that are not signed up to test. Now, the downside to this, in my opinion, is that you can't select test and stay but not pool testing. Once you sign up for testing, you're signing up for
All tests.
symptomatic, test and stay, and pool testing. So I'm hearing some parents are not signing their students up because they want the test and stay, but they don't want the pool testing, but that's not the way it runs right now. If you are signing up for one test, you're signing up for all three. And then there are time slots where each school is going to be tested during homeroom. These are the times that each of the schools will not have. It would be in the afternoon, but Clark and Stanley, 8:20 to 8:40.
And again, is that everybody or is that random?
It's random, it's a random selection. There's an instructional video here, and so it says, it will be a random selection, is what I can say.
What happened with athletes and extracurriculars?
So,
Like, are those mandatory people had to sign? I
no,
mean,
we did not go mandatory with that. They are part of the test, they are part of the pool of students that would consent to test. I can't speak for Mrs. Mulcahy, and I'm actually a little upset that I'm unprepared to answer this, why we went straight to this and we didn't follow up with the athletes, and I don't have that answer, and so I'm sorry.
I think random is better, right? No, statistically, that's how people sample, right? You just grab a group here and a group here and a group here and you test them.
Except that last year, most of our cases came through sports.
Right, but they're in the classrooms too, right? So you're still
They are
getting
in the
them.
classroom.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry. So, if you participate in extracurriculars, we're not mandating.
We did not go that route.
Okay.
In all honesty, when we talked about it last time, everything had already started, right? So we talked about it on what, like September, whatever, and like the kids had already been practicing and getting together for a
Right, okay.
month.
Well, so, John and I were talking about this today, just in terms of the process, because there, it was all happening sort of at a funny time, but it was my understanding, and as Mr. Jantis, that it was gonna come back to us for some
Right.
sort of vote. And I don't know, I confess that I have not looked to see what's happening in other districts, and to see how they handled it. I do know, that in the 6 weeks or so since we have last met in public, I have seen that this is rolled out in virtually every district.
It has, but it's interesting that I have a small group of superintendents that we keep in touch on particular items, and a text came through that they are all scrambling to get connected with CIC Health. They don't have additional personnel in their district. They're struggling to get it up and running. And so I really want to shout out to Mrs. Mulcahy that we got in immediately, got assigned this health coordinator who is here every day, and then his testers are here, and now he's looking to expand it so they can assist our building nurses with a test and stay program so that the nurses can continue what they do on a daily basis.
Wow.
So
And this is no cost.
no cost to us.
it's pretty
So,
unbelievable.
And have we actually tested anybody to stay? Like,
yes,
yeah,
it's been
okay.
used. It's
So-
been used and it's
So
working.
then I think we are ahead of other districts.
We are.
Because, I mean, I can't speak to many others, but, my son's going to Essex Tech and they are just only starting it now.
We have already
They have
utilized
not
it.
been.
They were trained, the nurses are utilizing it. In addition to that, you just said something that I lost my train of thought, but we are way ahead. Considering some of my colleagues can't even get it up and running because they can't get anybody from CIC Health, and we might have 4 or 5 people, it's amazing.
Have you heard, what kind of negative feedback have you gotten from parents?
I have received no negative feedback. What I will say is that we will not be accepting consent to test verbally by phone. You must be signed up in that link, because in order to test, the nurses are going to be checking that you have registered. Verbal consent is not going to be accepted, which means your student will be sent home to quarantine or be sent for a PCR test on your time and your family's time.
Is there any way to kind of pull back from that, and if they go home, hurry up and fill it out? And then-
I am not, our nurses I've instructed them not to accept verbal consent with somebody saying, I'm going to go on right now and register. It should already be in the system. 1,000 students, we have over 2,000. I would encourage people with today's communication that went home to go in and sign your student up. Otherwise, we're going to be quarantining your student at home, or you have to provide a PCR test at your own time, and it just makes it much easier if you're in the system.
Is there a way for people to check? Because I know I went on and did it, but you're jumping to like some other system. Do you know what I mean? Like when you hit that link, you sort of go to another
You
system.
go to CIC.
Right.
Right. So is there, I mean, should
You
people
could
be
always
double
call
checking?
your school nurse and
Okay,
say,
I mean, I don't want an influx of 1,000
No,
calls,
but you can always
but I'm
say-
just saying, you want to make sure, because you don't want that
when
to
I
happen.
registered, I assumed that it went in.
I know, me too.
I will say, I did that, and it wound up signing me up twice.
Really?
Or signing my child up twice, so better twice than not at all.
Better the twice than not at all, because I would just be afraid that maybe what if some,
It's working.
Okay.
It's keeping kids in school. I know for me, I know Mrs. Mulcahy was concerned that she felt I might have been symptomatic for the Delta variant. I felt that it was not that, and it was very settling to say, oh, I'm negative, I'm staying. So
No, I think
it's really effective, in my opinion. Any further comments?
I have a question. I'm sorry, Glenn.
No, you go first. Let's
So-
put my thoughts
Yeah,
together.
and thank you for bringing this up, Superintendent. I do have some other questions which I'll send, to you and Amanda offline, just that I wanted to ask her tonight.
That would be great.
But just, you asked about, any negative feedback. So I was at the football game here Friday night, just, walking around, and I did hear, not a lot, but a couple of people asked about this pool testing thing, and that's where a lot of my questions were going to. Just, how will that impact my athlete?
Right.
Because I think everybody has this memory from last spring, like the whole team is forfeiting games, and, I think there's some, it's just, I think it's kind of fear of the unknown. Maybe the messaging hasn't,
I think it's a great
gotten
question.
out.
And I think, in my layman's, non-medical view, I think we're in a better place. But I would love for you to send those questions to Mrs. Mulcahy, copy me on them so I can understand the answers as well. I think those are great questions.
And I guess, I'm sorry, I was just going to ask, I don't know for certain, but I did look on the DESE site just very quickly today on this, and they continually use the language strongly recommend as far as this. It wasn't, so I guess my question is, this pool thing, I think everybody agrees the first two we're all in agreement on, but I think most of our questions last time were around this third thing.
Yes.
So, do we have to do it, or, can we decide, hey, we're not going to do it, or?
I think in
Based on
order
what
to
Desi-
partner with CIC Health, that they're handling, again, I'm speaking with the little knowledge that I have. CIC Health is being brought in to assist with the pool testing. We wouldn't have their assistance with the test and stay and the symptomatic testing. So that's why they're being brought in. I didn't get you the numbers of how many districts are doing it, but just from my listserv, I can see that it seems that those districts were starting with the symptomatic testing and the test and stay. Many have jumped on board and said, why not do it all? Let's keep our kids in school as long as we can. But let me circle back and get you those numbers, and then please forward your questions to Mrs. Mulcahy and myself. We'd be happy to answer them.
Have any members of the school committee gotten any questions or feedback?
No.
No? Okay, I haven't either. Yeah, if we could also do this publicly, that would be
Sure,
good.
of course.
Can I just ask you a question? I was trying to find it here. Is there, and just focusing on sports for a second, just because they're groups of kids all together, do we know what the MIAA rules are regarding testing? I tried to find it quickly, and it's.
I know, no.
I don't think that they're mandating.
I don't think they're taking a stance, a position,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I mean, like you, Superintendent, I would just say to everybody, it's much better to get yourself tested than have to be sent home, and all of that rigmarole that goes along with it. I also agree 100% that you can't do verbals over the phone. That's not how this works. You have to do your due diligence beforehand and sign up, and then it's fine.
We
So-
set up a process, and I would ask that people follow that process.
Great.
And as much as we all want to keep kids in school, you are opening the district up to liability if we're doing verbal consent,
Correct.
and I'm not in a position to do that, so.
And it was easy. It was a simple process.
Okay. The next item on my agenda is a presentation. In past years, the school committee has attended the convocation. The convocation happened this year and on Monday afternoon. We had some professional development going on, but I did want to share the convocation presentation a little bit with the school committee because there are 3 things I'm working on right now that are long overdue to you, and I recognize that. One is the new district strategy, and this work ties into the district strategy. The second is my self-reflection on my 2 years of goals that were from 2019 to 2021, and then obviously setting my other goals. But for those that have never been to a convocation, it is the one time during the year, unless I do a Zoom meeting with the entire district, that I get to speak with every member of our district. We shut the offices, the administrative assistants come, the custodians come, the food services people come, everybody comes. And I think it's important, although not all of them are educators, for them to understand what the district stands for. Where are we going? What are we working towards? And what do we stand for as a district? And so even the facilities department was there, and they're like, this doesn't all apply to us. I said, no, but if somebody asks you, where are we going? You know where we're going. A tragedy occurred the Saturday before the Monday afternoon convocation. And so this year I went into the convocation understanding there had been a tragic loss of one of our teachers' sons and their child, and Stanley School was mourning. And I wanted to recognize this moment, but we've also had a few other staff members who have lost their children. And so my job was to not only recognize and pause and do a moment of silence for this young man, but also then it's my job to build up and the enthusiasm for the school year that is ahead. So we began our convocation with a moment of silence for Brady Ellis. His mom teaches at Stanley School, kindergarten. His grandmother, Margaret Hogan, had been in the district for 20 years as an ESP, and he was 6 years old. So we started the convocation with that. The next thing that I felt was really important, and we've talked about it here at the committee meetings numerous times, and that is that not only has the world been through a lot in the last year, but our teachers have been through a lot. And recognizing that we all were not in the same place we've always been in when we come back and start the year. You know, the kids leave in June, you come back in August, and it feels refreshed, and everybody is enthusiastic. And we're still, it's like I said to you here, I feel like we're still recovering emotionally ourselves. And we needed to recognize that. And so my message to them was to take care of themselves, but also to find what makes you happy. And my funny story, and I don't know if I've shared this with you all, I shared with the district that my best day this past summer was one day. I bought myself a pressure washer, and I pressure washed my deck. And it was the best day I had, and I'll tell you why. Nobody was yelling at me. Nobody was questioning if I should go with the grain or against the grain or go in circles. I did my thing, and I had a blast, and it was so peaceful. So my message to them was to find what makes you happy, to remember to take care of yourself, that we're all in this together, and we are in a better place than we were last year. Then we were talking about the next 3 to 4 years, which leads into our district strategy. We had 43 new hires, so I felt it's important to go back to what our focus was and what our priorities were. But as a leadership team, and particularly with my central office, we felt we needed to send the message to the teachers that all of the things we're doing are not new. They fall into 3 buckets. And so I don't like when I hear, oh, it's more new initiatives, it's more new initiatives. It's really not. They all fit under three things, and these three things are what I see the district strategy becoming for priorities. The first bucket is belonging and partnerships. The second bucket, curriculum and instruction, and the third bucket is tiered supports. What does belonging and partnerships look like? It's students, families, staff, and community. And I felt it was important to highlight what our first four priorities had been, or our four priorities had been in the last district strategy. Our number one priority had been social emotional learning, assessment and data, curriculum and instruction, and educator growth. Now, what would fall under this bucket that goes deeper than social emotional learning? And that is our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I put Bridge next to it because that is the committee that came out of the Essex County Learning Collaborative last year, which started the work on DEI. And we have been working with a consultant from ECLC or CCE on a 5-year plan for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But again,
CCE is.
you're going to ask me, and
Sorry.
No, I don't know, and Jean can type it in the chat. Essex County, I'm trying to do better with my acronyms. The After Dark Partnership. This is the partnership where our 11th graders are going, and there was a tweet Mr. Kohut put out. This is our first year of a partnership with North Shore Essex Agricultural and Technical High School. Our student cohort leaves here at 11 o'clock every day. They get bussed over. Okay, yeah, I got the ECLC, Gene. I'm looking for CCE. Where is Don Shura-Corn from? What is the CCE acronym? So the After Dark Partnership is where we are sending a cohort of students to go over to Essex Tech and participate in career and technical education, whether it be construction, Center for Collaborative Education. Thanks, Jean. So they are going over there for construction, electrician, plumbing, and so all of those hands-on career and technical education programs we dismantled here in the district, they're now experiencing. So that is a partnership that we have with them. And then our innovation pathways, which is the advanced manufacturing that is going, the grant that we got from the state that is going, not only happening in our district, but that Essex Tech has offered to support us in. And so when you look at the warrants and see all those, the equipment coming in, it is for that program. So the next bucket, again, curriculum instruction, but it's to build a stronger, more culturally responsive curriculum and culture. Again, I was highlighting for the newbies what that curriculum instruction has always been a priority for the district, but now it is really embedding and making sure that our curriculum is culturally responsive and culturally responsible, and that's where this diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging come in again. And then our Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is something that we have worked on and trained our staff in. Professional development had been a big professional development push last year, had been in the UDL, and basically UDL is, or Universal Design for Learning, is the why of learning, the what of learning, and the how of learning. And our district staff participated in a course, multiple courses online last year, one course throughout the year, and have completed that training. So that falls under that. Again, explaining to the teachers that these are not all new initiatives. They all tie to the work that we're doing. And then we have the vision of a graduate for the NEASC accreditation that is occurring at the high school. We have that big visit coming up in 2022, and Mr. Kohut will be presenting to the committee on that work as well. And then tiered support. We've been talking about MTSS. MTSS, and it's in here, I'll wait till I get to that acronym. But again, it is tiered supports for academics, social emotional learning, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what is a tiered support? A tiered support is where you find targeted support for specific group of students. They are, I'm blanking here. Let me just look at this. whether a student is struggling in academics, whether a student is struggling social emotionally, or whether a student is struggling in belonging, you find what they need, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later in my report, and you come up with targeted strategies to mitigate what's going on. So all of that, we have talked about tiered supports academically. You know, what is the first level of academics that, and instruction that we give? Where do we come in with the next level of supports for the second level of students? But what we're trying to do is do that across all areas and disciplines with the academics, with the social emotional learning, and with the belonging. So all of this really ties together, and what's going to be challenging is trying to articulate this in our action items the way that we're articulating it with the DEIB work and that we've been working on for the last several months. And then I felt it was important because, again, we hear pushback that it's always something new. It's always something new. We're in the middle of a pandemic. But I wanted to remind the teachers in the district that if nothing ever changed, there'd be no butterflies. So, but I needed to recognize that we are still in a pandemic. We trust our educators, but it's our job to give them the tools that they need, and it's their job to decide what best fits with their students, and we trust their professional judgment. I wanted to remind them we're still in a pandemic. Research has shown that some of the ideas and tools should remain. We've learned some things during this pandemic, and there are some strategies we can continue to use even post-pandemic. And we all need to commit to putting some of those in place. We can't just do what we're doing because teachers know best. That has to be paired with our commitment to put some good ideas into practice. And then finally, I said this in a different way, but it is my job to continue to move this district forward and look at the long-term mission regardless of being in a pandemic. And so as much as I empathize with where everybody's at and how everybody's feeling, we still have to move this district forward. And that was my number one message, that I hear you, I understand how you're feeling, I understand that you're feeling overwhelmed, but I would not be doing my job if we didn't set long-term goals and try to develop our programs and services to improve the outcomes for our students. So it was kind of a neat package of, I hear you, I feel you, I understand what you're feeling, but we still have a job to do and we still need to get there. And so then I found, this came out of our DEIB workshop at the leadership retreat, and I'd like to share this with you. I hope my volume works. Let's see.
This is the pool where careful records will be broken.
Let's get back. Oh, I think I have to turn. How do I do this, Joe?
Want to give me that?
Sure.
Do I turn on? What do I turn on and what do I turn off? Okay, I'll hold it.
We're muting all, okay.
So what will you hear? Thank you and my apologies. Thank you.
So would you forward that to us
I will.
separately?
I will. Basically, again, it is my job to get us kicked off. And this is a video about a little boy who's tapping annoyingly in class. And all the kids tell him to stop. He gets sent to the principal's office. They say to stop. And Mr. Jensen says, I want to see you after school. And he's a little worried. And he goes and visits Mr. Jensen after school. And Mr. Jensen says, I think you're going to be a drummer, and gives him a pair of drumsticks. And he goes on to play in bands, to record, and to be a huge success story. And so my message there was to be a Mr. Jensen, and that we have, I'm trying to navigate all this, I'm sorry. We have an incredible opportunity coming back in person, and I should have just jumped to the other slide. I know how to do this better. So my message was that we have an incredible opportunity coming back in person. We're not in hybrid, we're not remote, and this is an opportunity to reconnect with our kids, whether it's by being a Mr. Jensen. And so I asked the district and I asked the teachers and all of the staff to commit to greeting each other and greeting their students every day outside of their classrooms. I made the commitment to be outside of the middle school, assisting Mr. Kalishman with drop-off, whether it be at the front circle or the back with Miss Sanborn, that this was an opportunity for us to reconnect with our kids in a different way and go out there and greet them in the hallways. And so I only have the middle school to look at right now. Because I'm here so early, I do want to visit the other schools and make sure that everybody's getting out and greeting their kids. And that was my presentation. I've taken some slides out, but that was the message. The message was to let the district know where we're going, what we're doing, what we stand for, and where the next 3 or 4 years look to be.
Can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
So the idea of the multi-tiered approach and making sure that all of these kids are captured, is there a presumption? What happens to the kids who aren't struggling or who aren't apparently struggling? Is there sort of a presumption that everybody is, and so they'll fall into one of those buckets?
No. The first level of MTS is that whole group instruction where kids might be okay, and it is where we need to extend activities and have students apply those skills versus any kind of remediation. So there's the difference between remediating and applying, and that's where the differentiation occurs.
All right. My other question is, if you have the number handy, how many kids are we sending to the After Dark program at Essex Tech?
Ooh, I don't
Next
have the
time.
number handy.
Next time.
I will. I thought we could go up to 11. For some reason, I want to say 8, but let me double check that number for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, how those students are chosen.
They had to apply.
Okay.
They had to apply to the program.
Okay. Right. Any other questions?
I just thought, in the absence of you being at the convocation, it was important. As you may have read and heard yesterday, the MCAS results are out. However, they're supposed to be delivered one day this week. They haven't come yet. Our plan is to send them home next week. Though the Boston Globe reported math scores have plummeted, I don't think our scores are horrible, considering the circumstances that were surrounding them. So I'm in the middle of crafting a letter to families that will be going home with those results by next week.
If I could just, on that, I actually, considering the headline in the Globe, I'm actually really proud of what both the kids and the educators did. I mean, I'm certainly, I was obviously not a member at the time, but I would have been in the court that I would not have. I mean, why? I mean, I understand that DESE had to, get tangible evidence, but, there should become no surprise. But I was very pleased, given what everyone has gone through in the last almost 2 years now, that I think it was okay. It was certainly absolutely room for improvement, but given what we've gone through, I had no complaints whatsoever.
And keep in mind, the amount of testing that occurred was lessened.
Right.
So a student might have gone from meeting expectations to not meeting expectations, and it could have been a difference of 2 questions had they had another day of testing.
Right.
So it's really hard. You're not even comparing apples to oranges because you're looking at 2019
Right.
and 2021, and we have, students that didn't take it that are now, there's just not really a comparable. Dr. Bacon will be presenting the findings to the committee once we have a chance to look at them further.
Great.
I know that one of the big things was the fact that, at least at the middle school, was that the testing was actually happening significantly later than it
Yes.
had in the past.
Yes,
So I'd be curious to know what, if any, impact that may have had.
yep. Also keep in mind the amount of teaching staff that were either out
Right.
on leaves of absences.
I mean, it's so much.
There are so many layers to this information that, yes, it was a data point. Yes, we did it in a different way. But as this, I feel very fortunate that this committee doesn't feel the MCAS results are the end-all be-all. And I think we will take this and look at it and look at our data from iReady and all of our other data that we collect in the district to meet the needs of the kids.
Well, I mean, look, you said it so well a few years ago when you said, if you don't, what is it, you track, you either are interested in what you track or you track what you're interested in.
Right.
And I think that, with the information that Dr. Bacon was sharing with us last year about the other kinds of assessments that were happening on a much more individualized level, that, that's giving us more, and more that's specific to our district, so.
And she's going to, her next report, the student outcomes from FY21, and her next report that's to follow is going to show you a little bit of that tonight. Then I just had a few other things that really happened today that I was super excited about. So we have been working, as I said, with a consultant on laying out our 5-year plan for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we had our leadership team meeting this morning. Typically, they've been weekly for 2 hours. I tried to go bi-weekly, but now we squeezed one in next week because we really took some work today. We have this action plan for 5 years for DEIB, but we don't have a vision statement. And a big shout out to Mr. Chris Norkin, our assistant principal at the high school. He led this work because he and Jean have worked closely with Dawn, who has been leading us, and also Chris has attended other trainings as well. And we literally spent an hour in this room, and it brought me back to why I went into education. He took us through kind of a student exercise. We watched a video. We did a silent reflection. We got into dyads. We had to compare what we felt we saw in that video and how it impacted our beliefs about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in our school system. Then we had to write a vision statement on poster paper. Then we had to hang it on the walls in here and do a gallery walk and put Post-it notes on everybody's paper. And he's going to put all that information together. What was really fascinating is that here we are, a group of 16 of us, and broken into 8 groups, and a lot of common language showed up in those vision statements. So it's going to be very interesting as he puts it all together and brings it back to us. What is our vision and statement for diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging in the Swampscott Public Schools going to look like? But it was an hour well spent. I was super impressed with the way he wrote it. I felt like it was, we tend to go into our leadership retreat in the summer, and as I jokingly said, we're all like, rainbows and butterflies and kumbaya, and then we get into the work and we're like, do this, do this, do this. And today we took a moment to really continue that feeling from the leadership retreat into a meeting that we have every single week. It was fascinating. The next one is something I wanted to shout out. Mr. Craig Harris, our Director of Social Emotional Learning, which if you recall is a new position, he presented to us the mental health vision for the district. He's going to be bringing that to the committee as well. It was unbelievable the amount of data he's collecting and how he's going to be centralizing it. But basically, the mental health vision for the district is the right student, the right services, the right time, and making it sustainable. That is it in a nutshell, but he gave us, again, about a 20-minute presentation. He is already meeting with everybody. He's taking a pulse of how people are coming back and their own social emotional well-being, the adults in the district. But I have slated him to come before the committee and share his presentation and his work in these early weeks as soon as possible. It was really the timing of this position and the work that he's leading couldn't be better following a pandemic. I think it would be something we would have needed even if we didn't have a pandemic, but it is critical that we have this position right now. It was very impressive. And then the final one I wanted to share with you, and if you have an opportunity the next time or even tonight before you leave if it's open, a couple of years ago we talked about, maybe it was just last year, we talked about changing the Library Media Center here in the high school to be a library and center for innovation. And it has been a project that has been supported through capital funds, and I was really excited to see that some of the furniture came in and was put in yesterday. These are high top tables with outlets on them, but Mrs. Wright, does that look familiar?
Yep.
When we were touring new elementary schools and looking at library media centers, this is the kind of flexible seating we saw. This is now upstairs in our high school, and here's another little corner. And this student couldn't have been more ecstatic to be working in this environment. So this is phase one, but it's amazing what a little furniture, what changes and upgrades can do. Granted, Mrs. Wilbur has books off the shelves everywhere, and she's in a panic that everything's not neat yet. But I just felt like I felt like we were in a new school, Mrs. Wright, the way we were when we visited those other schools. Like, what a great learning space that is for our kids. And if you start to look at the areas of this space that they've set up, you could pretty much have 3 different classes going on in there. So this is only the beginning. Super excited by what it offers for our students, for our educators, and I just thought I'd end with that note. And that's it.
Anybody?
No,
Just
I want
a
to go in there now.
quick question for the superintendent, if she doesn't mind.
No?
Going back to Craig Harris,
Yes.
I'm looking forward to his presentation. Is there, just generally, is there a timeline where he's implementing some of these
He's
changes?
collecting data right now, and he's trying to centralize the data. Right now, we have so many things that he'll show you. Like, we have students that we have an at-risk, we have the bullying, we have the student support teams, and it's all at each individual building. He's creating dashboards for the schools so that they'll be able to pull up how many incidences, how many students at risk, how many CRAs, a child requiring assistance, have been filed. So he's trying to set up dashboards so that the principals and the building leaders will have easily accessible information along with the school psychologists and adjustment counselors, so we're all looking at the same thing. Right now, we have all of that information, and it's spread out in different areas. So I don't have an answer for when it will be ready, but the work that he showed us today, he's already well into it. It's pretty, it left me speechless, quite frankly.
It's exciting.
Okay, I'm trying to stop sharing. Stop share. There we go.
All right. With that, unless there are any other questions, I am going to turn this over to Dr. Bacon, our Director of Teaching and Learning.
I am going to make her a co-host, if I can, or can you make her a co-host? Because I can't. She's going to share her screen.
If we can, that would be terrific.
I'm not sure.
All right.
We can
Maggie, can you hear us? Okay, hold on. Can you, if you say something, can we hear, you are on mute. Can you, will you do a test?
She's testing. So Amy, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get this to work without a full restart. And I don't
Okay.
know if that'll work.
All right.
It also impacts the other speakers. So if you want to pause.
Okay, so I think that makes sense because I don't, why don't we take a pause? What?
I can't guarantee that I can get this working. All I can do is restart everything, and that's what I called tech help, and they said, "Are your all settings like this?" I said, "Yes." They said, "You could try a full restart," which you could try.
So is that what you'd like to do? We'll all sit tight and power down and power back up?
I'd like to try that.
Okay, so,
Wish you could just do it next meeting.
well, since it's 8:15, I think we should try. Let's try, because I know we have tabled Dr. Bacon a couple of times now, and it's
I didn't mean Dr.
8:15, so
Bacon.
let's try it.
I meant Maggie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what would you like us to do?
Do you need to do anything official to like?
So we are going to, I'm going to entertain a motion to
Just recess for
to
like
recess
5
the
minutes?
meeting for 10 minutes, 5, what do you for 5 minutes? So can I have,
I'll make a motion to recess
Second.
at 5.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did-
Hang tight. We don't even have to stop there.
Okay,
You don't have to log out or anything?
all right, so people at home, please just sit patiently for a minute, and we are going to try and reboot some things on this side.
Do I log on? They just shut it down?
Mr. Dulett, should I shut down my Zoom?
No, keep yours up because you're the host.
Okay.
Keep yours going.
Hmm?
Technology, it's like, why doesn't this could you pin someone else
I don't know how to do that.
on there?
Glenn said that.
On their profile, like their
Recording in progress.
Testing 1, 2, 3. I was told to test my mic. Is it good? Yay!
Maggie, can you hear me? Does not sound like it. Maggie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yay!
All right, so Maggie, I'm going to have you speak, and then Madison, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to have you speak again, if that's okay. We're going to start with a clean slate here. So I apologize that we couldn't get to you two before, but I want to welcome our two newest members. I know that we saw you briefly before, but this is your first sort of official moment here with us, joining the school committee. And I know that I think I speak for everybody here that we're excited to have you two young
Yes.
women on board, and look forward to your insights over the coming year. So take it away.
Yay! Well, we can't thank you enough for having us. We were both so excited when we were invited to come here, and we learned that we were able to speak here like more than once, and we're just so honored and so excited to be able to work with you this year. And I think I can speak for myself as well as Madison. We've never been called down to the office before, so we're really scared. Other teachers, but it was like the best surprise ever. So we can't thank you enough. We're so excited. As a formal introduction of myself, hello everyone. I'm Becky Jensen. I'm a senior at Swampscott High School at the moment. And what I just quickly wanted to go over today, Madison started talking about this earlier, but really quickly, really briefly, everyone is really enjoying in-person learning at this moment. I know from personal experience and from just talking to my friends and even people who aren't my friends, which is another benefit of in-person learning. You get to talk to so many more other people. The physical benefits of being able to leave your house every day and forcing yourself to get out of bed, to get dressed, to brush your teeth, and then go to school. The mental benefits of being able to leave your house every day, and then the social benefits of being able to talk to other people. Not have to talk to your dog all the time because you're home alone through Zoom. And then, of course, the academic benefits of being able to have better communication with your teacher, being able to talk to them, not everything being through email. It's just absolutely incredible. And I think Madison can speak for me as well on this when I say, as long as it's safe, I'm really loving in-person learning. And I think everyone would agree. So I want to thank you again so much for having me. I'm so
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm just going to test my mic. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. My name is Madison Deal. I'm also a senior at SHS. Again, going off of what Maggie said, it is such an honor and privilege to be part of the school committee. We are so excited and looking forward to working with everyone in the coming year and all the meetings. So very thankful for that. Just going off of what Maggie had said, everyone is just so happy to be back in person. I know that sitting on Zoom, you know, when we had that one remote day last year, it was like, how do we ever do this for like such a long time, for months, and it was just so difficult. And the difference is like night and day, being able to, again, make eye contact with students and teachers. As Maggie was saying, that simple social aspect of just like seeing your friends in the hallway or something like in between classes. It's just like there are other people here. I'm not alone in my room. And it was just so wonderful to see everyone, like at a football game last Friday, you know, with the different sections where people are sitting and just school spirit, and then things that are normal like the fall play, and things that are, you know, routine that are reminiscent of the normal school year. It's just so wonderful to be back and have that social aspect again. So thank you.
Oh, yay.
So happy.
Welcome.
Your enthusiasm is infectious and makes us happy to be doing what we're doing. So thank you guys for joining us. All right, so Dr. Bacon, I have made you a co-host, so I think you should be able to control the screen.
Right, thank you, and everybody can hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, okay, so I will share my screen. Okay.
Look at all the.
Oh, she's the tab queen.
Okay. So again, my name is Jean Bacon. For those who don't know me, I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for the district. And what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is to give you an update on the kind of progress that we were able to make last year for students' academic performance, even during the pandemic, and to talk a little bit about some of the work that we have left to do in the coming school year and how we're going to be using our Essa, or Every Student Succeeds Act funds, better known as the Title Funds, or Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, to help fill in some of the, or meet some of the needs that we have moving forward. So first I'm going to talk about the elementary schools. And as you know, last year we introduced 2 new assessments that we used for reading and mathematics in all our K through 4 grades. And at the beginning of last fall, I talked to you a little bit about the deficits that we saw for students coming in after having experienced 3 months of remote learning in the spring of 2020. And I'm going to share with you now the results of how those students progressed over the course of last school year. So these are our reading results for grades 1 to 4. And as the superintendent mentioned in her report, we often talk about tiers of performance. And students who perform in Tier 1 on any given assessment at any given time are students for whom the regular day-to-day instruction delivered by their classroom teachers is sufficient to enable them to master the grade level standards in that area at an appropriate pace. Students who are struggling to master grade level material at that pace might fall into Tier 2, which indicates that they may need a little extra instruction and support in order to be able to master grade level materials. And students in Tier 3 need significantly more support in order to be able to master grade level material. So you can see for reading in grades K to 4 in the fall, we had 45% of our students in the fall of 2020 coming in sort of ready and able to learn without additional support at their grade level. And by the spring, that had expanded to 77% of our students, a very dramatic improvement in student performance that we were really pleased to observe. And you can see that dramatic improvement was at each of the grade levels from K to 4, with particularly strong growth at the kindergarten and first grade levels, which you can imagine is kindergarten and first grade. You know, it's very hard to learn as a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old remotely in the spring of 2020. So they came in quite needy, and they progressed very nicely over the course of the year. So at most grade levels, somewhere between 70 and 90% of the students were at grade level by the end of the year in grades 1, K through 3, a little less in grade 4, but still some significant growth from the fall. And we use a slightly different assessment for math, but again, you see this same kind of very dramatic growth from fall to spring in terms of the number of students who are being able to meet grade level standards. In the fall, it was 65% of the kids coming in with adequate math knowledge for somebody at the beginning of that grade level. And by the spring, it was 88% of our K-4 students. And we see the same pattern of improvement at every grade level across the K-4 spectrum in mathematics last year. So again, we're very pleased with those results. Some of the reasons for the success we experienced at the elementary level, we put a lot of time and effort last year into tightening up our system of our use of data and the delivery of our Tier 2 intervention services. That was a real focus for myself and the math and reading teams, math specialists and reading specialists at the elementary level. And I think that that's part of what really paid off. We also last year saw much greater collaboration across teachers across the buildings by grade level, which enabled them to plan collaboratively and play to their individual strengths and work much more effectively as a team across the grade levels. And that was through the majority of the year. That's the way our planning and instructional delivery took place, because we were in the hybrid mode of sharing that. So we really capitalized on the strengths of our teachers in a way we hadn't before. And we also, our curriculum last year, because we knew it was so challenging, we really focused almost all our effort on reading, writing, and mathematics. We did much less with other subject areas. And again, I think that was very helpful in ensuring that we were able to make the kind of gains that we did last year with our students in the K-4 grade span. I just wanted to also mention, though, a couple caveats about this data. It looks pretty impressive, but a couple things to keep in mind. This was our first year using these assessments at all those grade levels. We had piloted the math assessments in the prior year at some grade levels, but this was the first full year of data. So we really don't know how atypical this kind of growth is between, in any given year. Is this the typical growth that we're going to see in every year? I'm not sure. When I did a little bit of more research to help me contextualize this in terms of what usually happens in schools, I was able to figure out that we were kind of at that very high end of what's considered normal stretch growth. And stretch growth is what you want to achieve in order to close learning gaps for students. There's typical growth, which all students are expected to achieve, and then there's something called stretch growth, which is what you could reasonably expect students to achieve to try to close learning gaps between where they are and their grade level material. So again, based on sort of the national norms that come with this, that we can investigate with this data, we were kind of at the high end of normal for what we were able to achieve in stretch growth. But we were able to do that nicely during the pandemic. So those national norms are based on non-pandemic circumstances. So again, we're pretty pleased with the outcomes, but we really need to look at this with several years of data to be able to better understand it. And we also need to look at how students are coming in this fall. It'll be interesting to see whether these high gains and these levels of Tier 1 status are holding this fall. My preliminary observations of the data for the fall for K-4 suggest that they are not. So there is some summer learning loss. And one of the things I'm planning to do is look at the students who participate in our summer learning program and see if we were able to stem some of that summer learning regression that we appear to be seeing in most of our students. Okay, I think that's enough for the caveats. Then I'll move on to the secondary progress that we saw. And at the secondary level, in grades 5 through 12, we didn't have in place last year the same kinds of normed assessments that we did for K-4. So for the secondary level, what we really had to go on was student grades. So at the middle school, what you see here in this graph is the percent of students who were earning a D or an F in one or more of their classes by term. And I've here compared the 2019-20 school year, which is the year the pandemic started in May of that, or March of that year, and 2021, last year. So you can see at the middle school, the proportion of students who earned a D or F in one or more of their courses was about double last year of what it was in the year prior. So that was not terrific news. But again, given the struggles of online and hybrid learning, it's not surprising that there was some deficit last year. There you go. At the high school, you see similarly the percentages, but it's interesting to note that there wasn't much difference between the year prior to the pandemic and the pandemic year in terms of the proportion of students who were earning D's or F's in one or more of their courses. And another thing I did notice at the high school, which is not true of the middle school, that the D and F rates varied, varied quite a bit by core subject area. So the D and F rates for science and ELA were 6 or 7%. The D and F rates for mathematics were 12%. At the middle school, they were kind of a steady 10-11% across those three subject areas. So that gives you a sense of where we were and some of the challenges that we experienced in the middle school last year, which separated it from the performance of the prior years, and the fact that we have sort of this persistent problem at the high school, which the high school administration is well aware of and working very hard to address, about the number of students who are earning D's and F's consistently, whether we're in a pandemic or not. So what are some things we're going to do about it? One of the things that I wanted to present to the school committee and the wider school community is our plan for the use of our Essa Funds. Those are federal funds that come to us through our Title I, II, III, and IV grants. And so this year we've decided to concentrate those funds in ways to address some of the issues that the data from last year and the preliminary data from this fall are suggesting where we need to focus. So what we're doing with these funds this year, at the elementary level, we're continuing to fund some math tutor positions, which we funded in the past. We're also funding an ESL, English as a Second Language tutor at Clark, because Clark has a particularly large ESL population, and they really need that extra support for those students. At the secondary level, we're also continuing to focus on math, as that is, an area where we struggle much more significantly than we do in English language arts. So again, we're funding math tutor positions at the middle school, which we did last year and the year before. And in addition, we're adding a math interventionist at the high school, and we're splitting funding between our title funds and regular budget for that. So hopefully that will help some of the students who are struggling in math at the high school and begin to close some of those larger gaps that we see in math and then compared to other subjects in the high school. And then a couple of things that we're required to do with our Title III funds. We're going to fund some some outreach to English learner families, and we're going to continue to fund some professional development for structured English immersion, which helps the Tier 1 or general education teachers better educate our English learners within the general ed classroom. So I would invite the committee or anybody who's hearing this broadcast to email me with any suggestions. We do have a requirement to take public and community input about how we're spending these funds. If anyone has any other suggestions or ideas or questions about that, I encourage them to drop me an email in the near future, because we're sort of finalizing our plans as we move into the next month or so. So that's it for me. Are there any questions from the committee?
Anybody?
When you mentioned the positions, the tutors and such, those are filled positions. I just want to make sure, or are they open positions that you're trying to fill?
At this point, they're all filled.
Okay, great.
Good.
Because I just know how hard it is to find. Right.
Yeah. Most of them are continuing positions. I think we have it's a turnover position, one new math tutor at the middle school, and at the high school, the math interventionist is a new position, but it's also been filled.
Okay, great, thank you.
On the math side, I think I'm not sure if the ESL tutor position at Clark has been filled or not.
Okay.
Dr. Bacon, I have a question about the positions as well. It looked like at the elementary school level you were adding math tutors, but it looked like from the data that the ELA component had more kids struggling at tier 2.
Yes.
Math.
Yes. So these aren't the only funds that are being used to address our issues of the need for tier 2 and tier 3 support. So at the elementary level, we currently have 3 full-time reading specialists and 2.5 reading tutors who support English language, our support ELA interventions at tier 2 and tier 3. So that's a total of 5.5 full-time equivalent people to support reading through regular budget. In math, we don't fund any interventionists through, I think we spend one. We spend one part-time interventionist in math through regular budget. So even though the need may appear greater in ELA at the moment, based on this particular data point, I mean, another thing that's interesting is there are 2 different companies that we used last year for the assessments. So what counts as tier 1 in one system is slightly different than what counts in tier 1 in another, so they're really not comparable. This year we're using the iReady for both ELA and math, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And if you look at our MCAS data, it clearly continues to show that our needs as a district are much greater in math than they are in ELA. So that's why we're focusing the funds on math.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Dr. Bacon, I just have a couple of questions. I mean, yes, it's first-year data. Maybe not this evening, but if you could, at some point, let us know of the DNFs that you mentioned earlier in a couple of the slides. Can you break that up for us for the different populations that are in the school between, and I hate this word, but regular education, ESL, and the SPED populations, and what percentage of those populations make up some of your data?
Yep.
I also want to read.
I can certainly do that.
I'd like to read also, Mr. Kalishman put into one of the notes here that he'd like to add that a vast majority of the D's and F's at middle school were students who couldn't get back to school.
That's another factor.
Physically. He wrote psychically, but I'm going to guess it's physically.
He probably meant psychically.
Exactly.
So these are kids that remained remote the whole.
Yeah.
And again, Dr. Bacon, you can always, we can do this part of different, if you don't have that handy, it'd just be kind of an interesting thing to look at the breakout of the various populations. And again, as Mr. Kalishman said, that's another population that I'm kind of curious where all this breaks out.
Yeah, at one point during the year, I did look at that. I think like mid-year, I looked at the difference between students who were remaining remote and students who were in person and hybrid. And it was clear that there was students who remained fully remote in general were struggling much more than students who were at least hybrid.
Right.
So I think I looked at that at mid-year at, I can't remember whether it was middle and high or one or the other. But this year too, with the new data, the way that we're doing the interface between our student information system and the assessment software, we'll also be able to break down the iReady data, which again, this year, we're using it not just K-4, but K-8. We're expanding the use of that assessment as another data point. And we'll also be able to break that down very easily to look at subpopulations or subgroup performance. That'll be another interesting thing to look at. But I can certainly follow up on the D's and F's.
Thank you.
Just have a quick question. Excuse me. So Dr. Bacon, just on your last slide on the use of funds, under professional development, you talk about English immersion, professional development. Is that for all the K through 12 teachers, or are you just focusing on the high school, or just curious on that one?
So what that is, I think we did it for the first time 2 years ago. Our English as a second language teachers developed a 10-hour or 15, I think it's 10 hour, a 10-hour or 15-hour in-service professional development opportunity. And then we advertised it to all teachers in the district, and anyone could sign up to take that. As part of the licensure for professional level licensed teachers, all professional level licensed teachers have to earn an additional 15 what are called professional development points in sheltered English immersion over every 5 years. So it's a way to help them maintain and update their knowledge and skill. And we tried to offer it in-house for no cost. And for a couple of years, we were able to actually provide teachers stipends to do it. It was open to all educators in the district.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Great
you,
base.
Dr.
Thank
Bacon.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I really appreciate having data points.
Yes.
Like, I just appreciate having someone, you know, not just saying the kids are fine, but like seeing really where they are.
Right.
Right. It'll be interesting to see the progression compared to last year. So if we're, you know, this time next year, that'll be some really interesting data for your executive team to really take a look at to see, you know, where are the holes. That's good.
All right, so I do not have any updates as a chair, other than what I've already shared with everyone. We do have a tri-chair meeting on Friday. And so we'll move into the subcommittee. School building committee updates, are there any?
Well, I mean, the big news was the town meeting overwhelmingly supported the new school, and town members will have the opportunity to vote on October 19th. And this week, or last week, at the State House, they approved early voting. So the select board approved it for Swampscott for this election too. So people are going to be able to start voting by October 9th, I think.
Good.
So you can go to the town hall and vote, and also if you aren't registered to vote, you live at Swampscott, the last day to do that is the 29th of this month. So register yourselves to vote, or take advantage of early voting, or vote on October 19th. So that's exciting.
And that's going to be here in the
Yeah, everyone's going to vote at the high school again this election cycle. So that's all great.
Whatever steps you jump through to make that happen, I appreciate that that's happening only at one school and not at the middle school where all of those people can walk in and out.
But we've requested that the town find another spot after
Yes.
this election. We've had to implement an early release day in order to allow for parking, and so we're working very closely with Sue Dublin to try to make other arrangements in the future. But I think, you know, I understand why a central location works.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, have we considered, or has the high school considered having a voter registration day for those young adults who are now 18, who could potentially vote in any election, but to make it as simplistic as possible?
Great idea.
I don't know if that's possible.
Pretty exciting.
But
I will inquire. That's a great idea. They may already do it, I don't know,
Right.
but I will find out.
Certainly part of a civics
absolutely.
program. And so now we have two policies. Suzanne, John, I will.
So the concussion policy is a routine thing, and I noticed when I looked at it, it looks exactly the same. There's been no changes to it, and I have to assume Mrs. Farley's looked at this, and there are no changes. I just wanted to make sure that the people listed in here, like safety training program, is approved by the DPH, the Massachusetts DPH, and it's on the website. I'm just verifying that everything's the same, but assuming that it is, this is just a routine, policy to make sure that we have a policy for students that have concussions. I mean, there's not really much to discuss in here. And the other thing, that the protocols for this?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that that's, like I said, not something we have to that we are in charge of, but I see she had a couple changes in that, like she had just changed the date and,
Some contact information.
yeah.
I think it was just
Yeah,
updated.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it looks like, I mean, obviously, we're not gonna approve that. I think it's to stay in line with the concussion policy, but I would recommend we just adopt it because there's no changes.
Mhm.
And if she's fine with it and good with me. So I would take a motion.
All right, I will entertain a motion
So
to approve policy JJIF.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
As we said, this is just a routine, keeping it on the books. We do this every year.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I'm just, yeah.
I don't have any issue with the policy or the protocol, but when I was reading through the protocol, I'm sorry, I'd written this down for like a month ago, and I found it in my folder here, and it struck me that there was a lot of good information in there, and I was just wondering if someone's child did have a concussion, I'm wondering if we can talk to the athletic director about like a pamphlet or something that they could just put in hand instead of having to go to the protocol and start leafing through it, to say, here's the next steps, you have a concussion, here are the next steps, type of.
Well, that's part of why they have to take that, online class, like.
Right,
they have to
that awful thing, right.
Yeah, so that's probably why they sign off on that, so you know the stuff ahead of time, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
You're right.
I can appreciate that. I was thinking more of the case where, the kid gets, injured in a game or a practice, and, the parents, just wants to focus and, all right, what do I do next type of thing, or, things like that. I mean, I think maybe as a takeaway, we can, see if something like that's possible.
yeah, I remember my daughter had it, I mean, her physician gave her that stuff, but,
Yes.
I was gonna say identically the same thing, I know.
like, I had to go to the doctor.
Yeah, one of my kids had it, and the first thing that they gave the parents when he was, in the
Yeah.
ER was this pamphlet of, this is what, protocol that you have to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yes.
So, but why is this limited to the AD? I mean, certainly you can get a concussion from falling at school. Is it limited to?
Well, I think this is something, I think this policy came down from the MIAA,
Okay.
whatever, but I think the protocol, the concussion protocol is probably applicable to.
It's utilized at all of the schools in the event
Right.
of an injury,
Of any
such as
kind of
a concussion.
The nurses would, right.
I just think you hear about it more because for the sports, there's
Sure.
X amount of, X amount of protocol before you can even, go to a practice, let
Mhm.
alone
Mhm.
participate in the game.
Yeah.
All right, with no more discussion, then I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, but are we gonna do any follow-up on this, just as far as,
I'll find out about the pamphlets with, I wrote that down from the AD,
okay,
but,
Because obviously they exist, they're in
Right.
doctor's offices. so
right,
maybe we can get some.
I wrote down a note that
Okay.
I'll find out.
Okay.
You
thank you.
could probably just get something from Dr. D'Souza or whatever.
Yeah.
That's-
All right,
yeah.
but the concussion policy is approved.
This COVID testing policy, Pam, is the next
Yep.
thing?
Hold on one second. That was just for the concussion policy,
Yeah, but-
not the protocol update.
Right.
Yeah, we don't approve those.
Do we, well, it's
No,
here that there's a vote requested,
We don't do the
but
protocol
we don't do
one.
that, do
No.
we?
No, I think
No
they just
protocol.
wrote that wrong.
Protocol is no vote.
Okay. And then the COVID testing?
So this is from,
It's from Framingham, and I think it's great. I think that everyone needs to look at it, but I also think we need to talk to Mrs. Mulcahy because some of the stuff that you went over tonight is different than
Okay.
what this policy says that they're doing. And also, I think Mrs. Mulcahy, I think we need to have a discussion, maybe a subcommittee meeting, because I think there's nothing in here about like, not testing. Like it just says you're not gonna get punished if you don't do it and it's not required, right? But it doesn't say, in the event that you have a negative test, you go home, or it doesn't say any of those kind of things.
I would highly recommend a subcommittee meeting, policy
Yeah.
meeting with Mrs. Mulcahy.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I don't know, John, did you read it? Like, do you think, I just think there was some holes.
Yeah, I agree. I looked at it briefly this afternoon, but
Okay.
yes, I agree, we should have some follow-up.
Okay, so are we considering this a first read or not really?
I don't think it's really a first read, to be honest
I
with you,
wouldn't.
because
Okay.
I think we should put it into Swampscott Public School language and make it as close to what we're actually doing as possible, and then that could be the first read, and then we can tweak it.
Well,
I
is that?
I think this needs more of the tweaking.
But is what Ms. Mulcahy is doing by way of testing is not policy, that's protocol.
Right, but this is our policy that, yeah, she has protocol for how she's doing it, whatever, but this is just saying that you can come to school while you're waiting a safety, like, this just says,
Okay.
sort of, this has more of like the bigger picture, how it's gonna run and affect you, not how it's gonna be done.
Mm.
Who's gonna do it, who's gonna pay for it, or not pay for it.
All right, so we will table this until,
I think we should definitely have a first read, but we should do it between now and the next school committee meeting, so we have a first read going on this.
so that we have a first read going on.
We should do this as soon as possible, so that we can have this on the next agenda.
Well, and, if we need to, we can always pull an off-cycle meeting together,
Yeah,
as
I
long as
just
we
think
have
that-
quorum, because obviously it's really timely, and we can't just let it float out there.
I agree, but we also can't just write it and copy this one, because there's things in this that I don't think we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just have, Mrs. Karen get a meeting with,
Yep, I will,
Mulcahy.
when we debrief tomorrow, I will ask her to do
Yeah.
that.
And then depending on when that happens, you can tell us, we can meet before the next meeting, or like where you stand, you know what I mean? And if you need us earlier, then we'll try to do it.
Yeah, Maureen has both John and our availability for the next couple of weeks for for this meeting, so, for another policy meeting, so we can just do them both together.
Okay. Okay, so with that, then I'm going to move into the, it's a little bit different than it has been in the past, the consent agenda. And I am going to put this onto I'm going to approach this as a consent agenda
Right, I don't know
with
why I-
3
right.
pieces. The first are the regular session minutes from August 25th, 2021. The second is a donation from the Bertram House to the school district. And then the third is warrant number 2210 and 2212. And I will entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? So, just for public information, the gift is a $500 gift. Of overstock of donated hand sanitizer, 20 cases of it. We thank you to the Bertram House.
Absolutely.
Any Any discussions or questions? All right, then all in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that passes. And then it is not 8:55. I don't know
Amy, I'm sorry, what about the warrant issues then?
We did it like
that we did that as a
consent
consent agenda. So all three together.
Gotcha, sorry. Sleeping over here.
So usually it explains it on here. With a consent agenda, I can, since it's routine matter, we can vote on it as one. We can always pull something off for individual vote or discussion
Right.
as needed. All right, let me go over to Zoom and see where we are in terms of the participation. We have one attendee who is our middle school principal, Mr. Kalishman, but other than that, it's all panelists. So I think it will be safe to assume that we do not have public comment this evening. And so with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, terrific. Then it is 8:58, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you for putting up with all of the technology.
our
Thank
new-
you to
our new
Joe
reps.
for fixing that. Fabulous.
Yeah, welcome to the
And
new reps
welcome.
too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.